problem is that most of the research you're assigned doesn't bite. So what happens? You open 5 tabs, you read the first 2 sentences of a paper, and then you just switch to Instagram and scroll cat videos. You come back, you read more 3 sentences, you feel guilty, and you end up closing the tab. And then at 2 a.m., you're 3 hours deep into a rabbit hole about the neurochemistry of creativity because that grabbed you. Here's the thing though, that 2 a.m. hyperfocus rabbit hole, that is actually what good research looks like. The problem isn't your brain. The problem is that you haven't been taught to use it. I'm Al-Anoud, a pre-med at UC Berkeley, diagnosed with ADHD, and today I'm gonna show you how to research anything deeply using the way your brain already works. So let me diagnose what's actually happening when you try to research with ADHD. We're taught that research equates gathering. You make a list, you Google, you read, you highlight. For neurotypical brains, that works fine. It's systematic, predictable, and stable. But for us, it's literal torture because the ADHD brain isn't wired for passive intake. It's wired for questions. It runs on curiosity voltage. It doesn't sustain on information only. It sustains on puzzles. So the first prescription is this: stop trying to research like a neurotypical librarian. Start researching like a detective, which is a scientist. A detective doesn't gather facts randomly. Neither do scientists. Trust me on that. A detective starts with one specific question, which is your hypothesis, and then they are obsessive with answering that question. I call this the interest anchor. Before you open a single paper, you identify the question that actually has a hook in you. Here's how. For example, let's discuss my honors thesis. So let's say healthcare economics and residency. That's too big. Your brain will drown in the information. So now you ask, what specifically bothers me or fascinates me about this? For me, it was what my honor thesis is about. Is resident hours, the 80 hours week, more harmful to patients, or is it the handouts, the information given when you leave the shift or come into the shift? Feel the difference? The second question has voltage. It has specificity. It has personal stakes because also I'm going into residency, so I would like to know this information. The more specific your question is, the more your ADHD brain can lock in like a heat-seeking missile. Write that question in your leather journal. This is my leather journal. That is your anchor point, and you're going to come back to it every single session. So, okay, now we have our interest anchor. So now we hunt, and I want to reframe the hunt itself because most research guides will tell you to start with databases and cast a wide net. PubMed, Google Scholar, find 10 papers, take notes. For an ADHD brain, that wide net is a trap. You'll drown in the input. You will lose the thread and abandon the whole thing within 2 days. Instead, look at a controlled rabbit hole protocol. Step 1, find the seed paper. Find one single source that is the closest to your specific question. Not 10, just one. The one that makes you feel electricity when you read it. One seed paper, this is your root node. Step 2, follow these citations like breadcrumbs. So in the end of each paper, you see that they have like 60 other papers cited. So once you have your seed paper, you just go straight to that section. That is the gold mine. Those are the papers that the expert of the paper that you like was like, oh, these are important enough that I have to cite them. So what do? You pick 3 to 5 that feels relevant to your anchor question. Only 3 to 5. Don't fucking get all the 60 references. That is like literally useless. So resist your brain. Write each one in your leather journal or your Notion, whatever you use. Just title in one sentence why it mattered to your question. Step 3, the novelty lock. Here's an ADHD specific move. Every time you feel the pull to switch tabs or abandon the thread, read your interest anchor question out loud. That question is your dopamine contact. I also love using Research Rabbit, which is a tool that visually maps which papers cite each other. For like a visual ADHD brain, saying the knowledge maps really help. It turns the literature hunt into like a more of a game, like you see everything connected to each other, and games really work well for us. But every paper you add goes into your leather journal first. One sentence, why you added this paper. What does it do to my question? If you can't answer that one, your rabbit hole probably detoured. It's not on the main path, though you have to diverge back. So now you have your seed paper and you have 3 to 5 branches. Now your knowledge map starts to build. This is where the leather journal does its most important work, which is being your external brain, which matters especially for ADHD because we do not have working memory, or if we have it, it's literally like genuinely the most limited memory ever. Like it's 6 gigabytes at this point. Like it's not holding any information. Research, and this is backed by every research on ADHD, consistently shows we have a dysregulated prefrontal activity, meaning that we literally hold less in working memory at once than a normal brain or a neurotypical brain. That's not a personal failing. That's literally just your neuroscience. And the solution is simple. Stop trying to hold stuff in your head all the time. Put it somewhere real, like your leather journal. So here's my 3-part system. 1 page per paper. Title, the key claim, and 1 limitation, and 1 connector to your anchor question. A running question log in the back cover. Every new question that surfaces mid-reading goes here immediately. A connection page. At the end of each session, draw lines. Papers that agree, paper that do not agree, and paper that contradict or surprise you. This isn't just note-taking. It's building the kind of system, the kind of interconnected knowledge web that actually sticks in your brain because it's spatial, it's visual, and it's yours. Here's what I'm most excited about, because there's where having ADHD stops being a disadvantage. It actually starts being a research power, or like a superpower for research. Most people are taught critical thinking means being skeptical. Check who's funded the study. Does the data match the headline? All important, and we'll cover that. But there is a layer that ADHD brains do naturally that neurotypical brains have to consciously practice. Divergent pattern recognition. Research published in journals including Scientific American and a 2025 study on ADHD and creativity from Science Daily shows that the ADHD brain has a higher cognitive flexibility and has more cross-domain pattern matching than neurotypical brains. We notice when something from one field rhymes with something completely different. We make connection that linear thinkers miss. In research, this is extraordinary. When I was researching my econ paper, I kept noticing patterns from behavioral psychology that mirrored when, for example, researching a social media dopamine question, I kept noticing patterns about how behavioral addiction, ADHD, impulsiveness, 2 fields that rarely talk to each other. You're not like addiction means ADHD. Nobody makes that connection. That cross-domain connection becomes a core insight you built something on because people don't talk about it. So your prescription is trust your pattern. Trust what the patterns interrupts. When your brain goes, wait, this reminds me of something I saw somewhere else, write it in your question log immediately. Those interruptions are often where real insight lives. Now, the critical filters, because divergent thinking without filters is a conspiracy board, and that's not research. So here's an ADHD research filter checklist I use for every paper. Who is funding this? Pharma funding doesn't disqualify a paper, but it changes how much weight you give a positive finding. You flag it, you hold it lightly. Does the headline match the data? This one trips me up completely. I once read that, for example, screen time causes ADHD in children. The actual paper was a correlation study on children who already had risk factors. Correlation doesn't mean causation. That's why we run so much statistical models and we control for stuff. And also we need to control for the right stuff because we can make data say some things that are not there. Write this somewhere. Correlation doesn't equal causation. If correlation equaled causation, it means eating more ice cream will get a shark to bite you. That is literally nothing that has to do with each other. But if you think more deeply about it, of course you're gonna eat ice cream during the summer where sharks are gonna be more closely to the beach, and also more people are gonna be on the beach. So of course there's more shark bites. Like, oh my god, that is like, it's obvious, but you don't really think that at the beginning. So anyways, let's go back. In neuroscience, especially because we can't ethically manipulate human brains directly, almost everything is correlation data. That's why they're called social sciences. How do they handle outliers? If a paper finding is like especially clean, no anomalies, no exceptions, no this doesn't replicate in subgroup X, that should activate your brain spidey senses. You're like, good research has messy edges. Reality is messy. Especially in biology, everything is a suggestion and not a rule. Does the discussion acknowledge limitations? Counterintuitive but true. A paper has to clearly describe its own limitations to be more trustworthy. It means that researchers know the edge of their knowledge. They they know what they do not know and aren't overclaiming. You can't be like, I found the cure for cancer, or like, you cannot overclaim, or you cannot, I know how to do that. That's just overclaiming. Good research guides you through what you can't answer. It makes you help understand more and more till you answer the question. You cannot be like, oh, I saw this one thing and it made me think this. It doesn't work like that. Anecdotes or data, especially important for anything adjacent to self-help or wellness content, which I'm looking at, y'all. I mean the people that give health advice on the internet that are not doctors. A compelling story is not evidence. Look for sample sizes, control groups, replication, and we are on the internet. People lie. So, anyways, and here's the most beautiful part. Because your ADHD brain is sensitive to inconsistency, mismatch that feels genuinely uncomfortable, or like, what the hell? You will often catch these issues before you consciously analyze why. Something will feel off. Learn to trust that feeling, then verify it with the checklist. Your divergence is not a bug. It's an early warning system. You have your question, your map is building, you're reading critically. Now, how do you sustain this for weeks? Because here's what ADHD research project historically crashed. Long horizon projects. I know research takes time, and time blocking assumes your energy is predictable. Yours isn't, mine isn't either. So I don't time block my research. I energy block it. Here's the system. Before the week starts, I do a 24-hour ADHD energy scan. I notice realistically where I tend to have my highest executive function. For me, it's actually at night. That's why I'm recording this late. This is my time zone. This is my research container. I protect it. No calls, no email, no messages during this window. Today, it's, for example, my recording. So here's also a rule for each session. 3 tasks only, no 4th task. Before I open my leather journal, I write exactly 3 things I want to do this session. 1, find and read one paper. 2, add 3 entrees to the question log. 3, update the connection page. That's it. No 4th task, only 3. This works because ADHD brains overwhelm themselves with open question or open to-do lists. A bounded container, 3 tasks, 1 session, 1 anchor question, gives your brain a completion target. And completion for us is the dopamine payoff that makes you want to come back tomorrow. At the end of each session, I close with a research pulse check. 3 questions. What did I learn today? What is still unclear? And what's my one next step? Write those answers in your leather journal and bridge it to your next session. Research momentum is real, and the hardest part isn't the research itself. It's just staying and doing it again and again and again. The pulse check means that you already know exactly where you left off. That's the beauty of it. Your external brains hold the thread, so your internal brain rests. Here's the prescription I actually want you to remember from today. Don't just research. Build something from it. Learning scientists are consistent with this. Passive learning, reading, highlighting, scrolling through papers, creates a feeling of understanding without actually encoding that information. Your brain needs to work with the information to retain it, but build something is the most paralyzing instructions you can give your ADHD brain. Build what? Build how. So here's the ADHD output protocol. Step 1, destimulate, research first. So before you sit down to output anything, lower your sensory input 10 to 15 minutes. Notifications off, phone face down, lights off, no music, or maybe white noise only. This isn't procrastination. This is clearing your working memory, so your prefrontal cortex has room to organize what needs to be absorbed. Step 2, choose your output format based on your energy mode. If you're in high energy mode, I write, for example. I open the leather journal and I try to answer my question in 1 page, free form, imperfect, lowercase. It doesn't have to be perfect grammar. Just answer the question like I'm explaining it to my best friend at 1 a.m. If I'm in lower energy mode, I draw a visual map, claim on one side, counter evidence on another side, and then I interpret in the middle. Either way, the goal is the same. Take the scattered knowledge, force it into a coherent story that answers the question you started with. Step 3, use the output as your next hook. Building something almost always creates more questions than it answers. And for an ADHD brain, that's great news, because new questions equates to new interest anchors, which equals at the end to new research cycles. This is how research becomes a practice instead of a task. I make videos about things I researched very deeply, not because I'm an expert, it's because I'm an ADHD student, not a Ph.D., but because I love explaining what I've learned in the most powerful form of retrieval practice I know. And honestly, some of the most interesting moments of this channel have been of my own research, which contradicted something I thought I knew before. The confusion is where the learning is. So the the full prescription. Your ADHD brain isn't broken for research. It's actually built for it. The divergent pattern recognition, the obsessive interest anchoring, the discomfort with inconsistency. Those aren't liabilities. Those are tools. They just need a container. The container is an interest anchor question with voltage, a controlled hyperfocus hunt with the leather journal as your external brain, critical filters that use your ADHD spidey sensors instead of fighting it, energy blocking instead of time blocking, 3 tasks per session, not a 4th, not a 5th, a research pulse check to hold the thread, and always build something at the end. There is something I came across while researching for this video that stayed with me. The idea that over time, the questions become more interesting than the answers. And that's true for me. I've been researching ADHD neuroscience for almost 2 years now, since my own diagnosis. And every paper I read creates more questions. The knowledge doesn't close, it actually expands. Which means for a brain that gets bored easily, research might be the most sustainable thing we can do. Okay, so now I want to hear from you. Not what you're researching for class, what you're actually genuinely rabbit holing right now. And tell me which one fits you more. A, I already have an anchor interest. I just didn't have the system for it. B, I've never found a research question that felt like mine. C, I get lost in a rabbit hole and never actually build anything. Drop your answers below. I read every single one of them. I hope you really enjoyed my video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to watch more of my videos, you can watch my last video more on hyperfocus. And see you next time. Bye bye.